Okay, well, I have now got two coats of poly on both sides of the plane. Did two coats yesterday, two coats today, this morning, this afternoon. And so I'm going to start the initial assembly process. Got the manual here. I'd have to say the manual is probably not one of the better manuals that I've seen written, but by this time you've put some planes together, so it'll help. But actually the one thing I'm doing, and I'll be going back and forth just to double check, I got the video up from Banana Hobby with Jeremy and his long version video, so I'll be just kind of checking what he's doing and making sure I'm kind of doing the same thing there just to make sure. So I'm going to kind of follow his lead. The manual kind of has you putting the wings on first. Just going to follow his lead. We're going to put the tail on first. And so one thing you'll see tucked up in the back here are the connections for the tail section. And there's three connections here. There's a elevator. That must be the light because it's not marked. And the rudder. And so you got those three sections there. And tear it up before you get together. And you notice, of course, obviously there's a couple of rods here, so you can just kind of, well, got to get the connectors out of here as well. Tucked up in there pretty good. All right, there we go. Got the three, the rudder, elevator, and then the light. Slide that in there, just give yourself a little bit of room there. So you got the three connections here. And the three connections here, so just make sure obviously elevator to elevator. And of course, the other thing you always want to make sure is your polarity is matching. The darker color, if you've ever looked, the darker color on your servo connectors is always the ground or negative. So sometimes like this one's brown, sometimes it'll be black. But I've had a few planes, like if you've had to put a new servo on or servo connector and you got a brown and black, and you just kind of want to make sure. But anyway, this is the elevator I got in my hand first. So this is the elevator. We'll check yellow and brown lined up together. Push that together, make sure it's really good there. All right. And we got the rudder and the rudder. So here's a case where the rudder here is you got white, red, and black. Here you got yellow, orange, and brown. So the colors are not exactly, but I'm going to line up the brown wire with the black wire. Just double checking the polarities there. Make sure I got a good connection. That one had a little better connection. I'm going to push on this one a little bit more because it didn't go in quite as good as that one did. Yeah, that one didn't feel like it went in good, so I'm going to give it another shot. There we go. Yeah, so I really wasn't comfortable with that one, the first one that went in, and I was already thinking about putting some tape on it, but this one's got the little clips that kind of go around it to kind of lock it in place. So if you ever take it loose, you got to kind of know how to pull that apart. And of course, is the last one. Now this is a 3-pin connector here, and this is a 2-pin connector here. So and again, this got the brown, orange, and yellow, and this is black and red. So of course I'm going to assume that just use the side where you make sure the polarity is right. But I had not seen that before, but that's an interesting one. But I'm assuming that's the light. Got a good connection there. So all right, so got those 3 connections made. Of course, one good thing about this is that this is easily, the tail can easily come back apart if you need to haul it to the airfield because you ain't got enough room, or if something doesn't quite go together. So we'll slide this together. See if anything's in the way. It wasn't sliding cleanly. Kind of, if you ever built anything, try not to force things. I'm gonna try to tuck these wires back up in there a little bit further and make sure they just weren't holding me off. Still wants to push out a little bit. I'm not using my stand here because the way this is, it doesn't fit good on the stand and it wants to turn, but I'm not having much better luck with the phone. But I think I can just put a screw in it and it'll hold in place. I just thought maybe it's wanting to push back out. When I push it in, it's kind of pushing itself back out, but there's really no signs of anything holding it. Just gonna tuck those wires back in there a little bit more, just to make sure that we're not putting any pressure on wires or anything. All right. Yeah, that is better. I must have had a little. So anyway, there's 2 3mm by 16mm screws. They actually give you some little hex screws or hex wrenches to go with it. Jeremy was using a power screwdriver to put his in. You can see why now. I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna actually go get my hand tools. I think it's gonna be a lot quicker. Okay, I got my screwdriver. Had to push down on it a little bit to get it started, but they're just not too tight enough. Definitely one won't be putting Loctite in. Over. So first part done, got the tail on. We'll start re-looking at the wings and get ready for those. Okay, so we'll start with the right wing. One thing I didn't really talk about, but you'll see when you unbag, in came a bag with all the screws and everything. The two screws that held the tail section on, they were separate by themselves, and then there was another bag that had the wing section screws and parts. There's another bag of some screws and connections. I'm assuming those go back. For the elevator and the rudder. So anyway, so we'll start. We'll put the right wing on, and so what you'll notice there already, you'll see the aileron and the elevator or flaps screws. Oddly enough, they only marked one, which is, I guess, there's only two options, but if one of the markings had come off, then you would have to take a guess at which one's which. So it would have been good if they had just gone ahead and marked both wires. But that's okay. It'll be fine. And then you'll notice once again, I got the wires tucked down inside here, so gonna have to pull those out. And there you go. And then it's kind of the same thing. You'll see the aileron has a marking on it. Don't know if you can see that. No marking on the other one. And again, I was talking about before, you can kind of see you got a red, white, and black on one wire, and you got brown, red, and yellow on that one. So just one thing, there's kind of really no standards. You have to be careful with servos and that kind of stuff, because you can get reverse ones. And I'm going to follow Jeremy's lead too. Is before I hook up any elevator, any of the surfaces to actually move them, I'm going to get my receiver in there, and I'll cycle everything just to make sure that all the servos are working and they get centered out where they need to be, and then we'll hook them up. So just being a little precautious there. So you'll see, we'll go ahead here and I think I'm gonna need to move the camera. I'll try to splice that out. See if that's a little better. Slide that up in there. Get the wires out of the way. All right, so you have your center hub here for the wing. Taking a little bit to get it centered up there. You know what, that one doesn't. I know they're the same, but I'm just going to double check. Okay. I'm not really comfortable with that, so I'm just going to make sure this is. Yeah, it's a really, and it probably has, but as designed, the tolerance is really, really tight there. So it's just going to have to be really centered. I just wanted to make sure that everything's fits. it was going to be. So there's going to be 3 screws that goes in here. There's going to be 2 of the, I think these are what they call them, 3 millimeters, or 6 millimeters. So it'll be 2 of the 6 millimeters, and then in the center is one of the longer 16 millimeter ones. Let's see, left my screwdriver over here. Like in all jobs, for me anyway, you gotta hunt your tools around. Okay, I'm just gonna get the 2 started here just to make sure they're lined up. Pretty tight. Probably could stick Loctite on these. I may go back and do that once I get everything, I'm comfortable with everything. Hold your flap there, so just rotating the wing in. Let's see, my camera's a little crooked, so it gives yourself a little bit of room there. And right here, don't know if you can see it, but it is where you're going to screw in the arm to rotate the wing and stuff. So we got the 2 connections here, so we'll grab the aileron, make sure the polarities are right. So yeah, that's again kind of trying to make sure that connection gets in there. Yep. I'm tugging it just a little bit, make sure it doesn't pull loose. Yeah, last thing you don't want the thing when the wings are sweeping and get one wing halfway out and another one completely swept or out and trying to fly a plane that way. So here's we got the black, yellow, white, and then your yellow, red, brown. So again, make sure your darker colors. All right, so that snapped in there real well. We're going to tuck those wires. I think I'm gonna once I get everything comfortable, I probably will, because those pulled out quite a bit. I will probably put a touch of hot glue down on these. I'm just looking how they'll go down, and probably just yeah, I think there's a little groove in there. I think there may be room. May try that because I don't like the way they're moving around. But we'll get everything working first, and then we'll go do all the aesthetics. Oh, got one more screw to put in. It's one of the 16 millimeters. Just double check. Yeah. All right, one side done. So again, we'll just kind of repeat for the other side. May cut that out of the video because you probably don't need to see it twice, but again, pulling your wires out. Get the center hub there. I got my 2 wires out here already. So we'll It was just a tad bit. It was just all about getting them all good and aligned. Smaller screws here. Like I said, once I get everything together and it's working and I'm comfortable with how everything's doing, these smaller screws here, I may just come back in and just put a touch of Loctite in them so they don't back out. Okay. Pull my flap up. Sweep the wing. Aileron to aileron, brown to brown. Double check it before I snap it in place. Good connection, heard that snap good. Brown, so this is black to brown. Again, and if you don't get, if you're buying one of these, you put together, not built. People get upset when you say built. You put together a few planes, and so we've kind of been there. Okay, so got the wings together. I think the next section is going to be putting the elevators on, so we'll do that next. Okay, so time for the elevators to go on. So obviously you got the right and left. You'll have the rod that'll connect them to in between them, and 2 16mm screws. I've noticed that in the way they are in the bag, there was another bag with more 16mm screws in it. I don't know if it was meant for something else or this, or it's just the way they did it. So I hope, because there was only one left in the other bag, so we'll assume. Also, one thing you want to be careful in the main bag of screws, there's 2 little, Jeremy calls them grub screws. They're kind of a set screw. They're really small, and if you're not careful and you just dump them out, kind of like I did, I saw them laying on the table, so I was able to put them up and put them back in. But yeah, they're really important. They go in here, and that's what holds that on the control horn rod to the servo. So just want to be careful with that, because that'll be one of those things you can easily lose. So in the rod, it's consistent on both sides. It's symmetric. There's just a through hole in there. and your screw is going to go down in there and set down in there. And like Jeremy said, you want to be careful because this is just all plastic. You can easily over torque it, and that would cause a bad little failure. I'm going to put in the side. So you got your control horn there. It looks, there's nothing wrong with it. It's in good shape, not broke. Again, another bad thing would be happen if one of those, if it had a little crack in it and, you know, was not working as you was trying to bring the plane down. I've had a few friends flying that, you know, actually lose a servo or something and have to bring it down with like only one aileron. Controlling the plane definitely makes it a little more interesting. So what we'll do is we'll slide that in there like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of move this servo over a little bit by hand. Let's see if we can. Back. I'll just kind of hold that in place while we get the other side in. So I'm going to grab another 16mm screw, and well, that worked real good, didn't it? We'll be okay. All right, gonna have to go around here. Y'all may have more space to work in than I do. All right. Again, well, the elevator, the rudder's already, it's already hooked up, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But again, I just wanna turn it. I want to turn it on. Let all the servos cycle. But as far as assembly goes, the plane is basically together. You still have the nose cone, and you know, and we'll put these on. But you got the covers that'll go over the wings. But I picked the wrong one, of course. No, that was the right one. Anyway, you know, those will go on once you get everything together, but that'll be the last thing we put on once everything's connected and everything's tied down. So I'm gonna go get my receiver and my controller and the battery so we can get it bound up. And like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and you know, bind it up with the stock gyro already in it, make sure everything's working before I disconnect anything. But you know, like I mentioned in the earlier videos, I plan on bypassing the stock gyro just like Jeremy's done. And one thing I also noticed is that he talked about you know, putting the, if you look down here in the canopy section, let me see if I can get a better view there. I would try, they had to play with the camera, but he's talking about, you know, putting it back, you know, your receiver and everything back in the back so you can get your battery back further. I think my plan, I saw a couple other people videos where they're putting their receiver, you know, up in the front. And what I'll do is I'll just take my wires and I'll run them up through here. And again, once I get everything down, I'll just kind of tack it down with some hot glue, kind of keep up, make sure they don't move around. But anyway, that'll give me plenty of room to push the battery back. So that's my plan. So I'm going to go get my receiver and my controller and a battery, and we'll see about binding this thing up.